There are some moments in life where the world just tilts sideways, like the universe itself pauses and whispers, "You're not going to believe this." For me, that moment was standing on my front porch, lemonade dripping from my fingers, while our neighbor Cheryl marched across the yard with a pink clipboard in one hand and an actual loaded pistol in the other. My dad, who had spent 20 years with the Bureau and had stared down cartel bosses without flinching, just stood there barefoot in a faded t-shirt that said Grill Sergeant, sipping his coffee like it was any other Sunday morning. And that's when I realized this wasn't going to be one of those funny neighborhood disputes you tell at barbecues. This was about to become a showdown. Cheryl wasn't just a nosy neighbor. She had crowned herself queen of the block months earlier. She had no real authority, but she patrolled the cul-de-sac in a sputtering golf cart with duct-tape decals that read Community Security. She'd slap homemade citations on people's mailboxes written in glitter pen, and she wore this khaki vest stuffed with pins, walkie-talkies, and what looked like a taser built out of hot glue and a dream. The woman lived for control. And when Dad installed a plain black mailbox with a little American flag sticker on it, she acted like he'd erected a statue of the devil. She stormed up our driveway, nostrils flaring, and taped a violation notice to the post. My dad read it, chuckled, tossed it in the recycling, and muttered, "I've been threatened by better people." That little shrug set her off like gasoline on a flame. By the next morning she was back, this time wearing a plastic badge that looked like it came from a kid's detective kit. She started writing us up for imaginary offenses, grass too long, flamingos at the wrong angle, hedge symmetry violations. Dad, instead of getting angry, leaned into the absurdity. He filled the yard with 20 plastic flamingos, each wearing a tiny FBI ball cap. You would think that would humiliate her into retreating, but no, it just made her double down. She'd park cones around our driveway like she was blocking off a crime scene, call into her walkie-talkie for backup that didn't exist, even bang on our door at sunrise demanding a compliance hearing. Dad mostly laughed her off, saying, "You've got to let crazy burn itself out." But deep down, I think he knew this was going to boil over. And boil it did. That blistering afternoon, he was pruning the rose bushes in his sun hat, humming Johnny Cash, when Cheryl's golf cart came swerving around the corner like a drunk duck. She leapt out, stormed across the yard, and screamed, "You're in violation of Code 43B, unauthorized alterations to community aesthetics." Dad brushed a leaf off his arm and said flatly, "Cheryl, there is no Code 43B. She snapped back, "Don't back-talk an officer of the law." That was the moment her hand went to her belt, and out came a pistol. My lemonade glass slipped from my hand. Dad didn't blink. She declared, trembling but loud, "This is a citizen's arrest under my authority as head of the patrol division." And Dad's voice dropped so cold I swear it froze the cicadas. "You're pointing a firearm at a federal officer," he said. She screamed, "You're not federal anymore. You're just some old man." It was like watching two storms collide. Dad took one slow step forward, and she realized every neighbor was standing on their porches, phones raised, cameras rolling. That's when Dad pulled out his phone, tapped a contact labeled Cruise, and simply said, "It's happening." 15 minutes later, 3 black SUVs roared down our sleepy street, and agents in tactical gear fanned out across the lawn. Cheryl shrieked, dropped the gun, and stumbled back, insisting, "I am the law." And the agent in charge just shook her head and said, "No ma'am, you're under arrest." Watching her get cuffed in front of the whole block was surreal. Half terrifying, half ridiculous. But the craziest part hadn't even surfaced yet. Because when Agent Cruz, one of Dad's old protégés, showed us what they found, the bottom fell out of my stomach. Cheryl wasn't just a busybody with too much time. She had a trail across 3 states, impersonating building inspectors, fake sheriff deputies, even pretending to be a mayor in some no-name township. She had dossiers on all of us, notes on our routines, even blueprints of our house. She wasn't just nosy. She was methodical, predatory, and she had a history with Dad. Years back, during an operation targeting forgery rings, he nearly caught a teenage girl who specialized in fake IDs and badges. She slipped away before charges stuck. Now it looked like she'd grown up and reinvented herself as Cheryl, the suburban tyrant. And as wild as that was, the plot thickened. The very next day, a minivan screeched to a stop in front of Cheryl's taped-off house, and 3 people in dollar store uniforms jumped out, patches sewn onto khaki shirts that read Citizen Action Patrol. They shouted about unlawful detention of their superior officer and restoring HOA sovereignty. That's when Dad muttered, "Knew it." Turns out she had followers, true believers. They barricaded themselves inside her house, piling furniture against the doors and rigging tripwires with cans and bells like some kindergarten version of guerrilla warfare. FBI debated storming the place, but Dad just whistled for our beagle, Max. He strapped a little pouch of beef jerky to Max's collar and sent him in. Our fat old dog squeezed through the cracked door. Chaos erupted inside. Shouts, crashes, the sound of duct tape ripping. And seconds later the barricaders stumbled out in panic, screaming about an attacked dog. Agents rushed in, hauled them out, and Max trotted back with a strip of bacon in his mouth, tail wagging like he'd just saved the free world. That night, the block looked like a strange mix of war zone and block party. Floodlights, agents combing through Cheryl's house, neighbors setting up lawn chairs with popcorn. They pulled out boxes of fake uniforms, recruitment pamphlets, even plans for auxiliary patrols in other suburbs. It was a full-blown movement she was building under our noses. The real HOA president showed up, pale as a ghost, apologizing that they never knew she wasn't authorized. Dad just stared at him and said, "She had a Hello Kitty badge." That shut him up quick. By morning the news vans rolled in, turning our cul-de-sac into a media circus. Footage of Cheryl screaming and Dad squaring off went viral overnight. People online started calling him Grill Sergeant Bob, the HOA Slayer. There were memes of Max in an FBI cap, Cheryl frozen mid-shriek, captions like, "Neighborhood watchdog versus actual dog." Dad hated the attention, but I saw the little smile at the corner of his mouth when I showed him. By evening, the neighborhood was grilling burgers, kids were wearing fake badges, and someone gave Max a homemade medal that he immediately tried to eat. And for the first time in a long while, Dad actually laughed, deep, unguarded, like a weight had finally lifted. But here's the thing, stories like this never tie up neatly with a bow. Cheryl wasn't just a one-off lunatic. She was part of something bigger, a twisted hunger for control dressed up as community safety. And even though the FBI carted her away, even though the neighborhood celebrated like we'd won a war, Dad just leaned back on the porch, coffee in hand, and said, "Crazy has a long shelf life." And I think he's right. Because the truth is, control, real or imagined, makes people do insane things. And sometimes the most dangerous battles aren't in far-off countries. They're right here in our quiet little neighborhoods. So let me throw this to you. What do you think? Was Cheryl just a delusional neighbor who finally went too far? Or was she a criminal mastermind who nearly pulled off a suburban coup? And what about Dad? Was he wise to stay calm and laugh it off? Or should he have shut it down sooner before it got dangerous? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Share this with someone who's lived through their own HOA nightmare. And tell me, what would you have done if you were standing there when your neighbor pointed a gun over a mailbox?